Because I think we're a bit behind from Ontario in the West in terms of, consuming. And we can tell, obviously you can tell that's my thing is like the industry and how it works. The big brewers, because of the retail environment, they're trying to stop and they were protecting their space at retail. But at one point, the big retailer is like, no, we have too much demand from the consumer. And the pandemic happened. It's like people are like, okay, I'm not spending on anything else. I'm going to, there's craft breweries. Let me try to get into that.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to All Beer Inside, back at the breweries. I'm your not so humble host, Carp, and today we are in Joliette area of Quebec. Joining us today is Paul from L'Alchimiste Brewing.
Hi.
Hi, thank you very much for taking time in your schedule to speak with us about your products and your passion and your beers today. Speaking of your beers, you brought me out some delicious looking beers to try. Exactly. What's number one I'm going to be trying?
Number one is our Alchimiste Blonde, traditional one that we've, it's been in the market for over 20 years. So, but we actually changed it. Did a little change. We didn't change the recipe since I acquired the brewery, but we changed the filtration method. We figured out there was a lot more oxygen than we thought in the beer, and now we changed the filtration. And actually now it's one of my top 5 beers here. So, blondes for me, what I see from a craft brewery, it's more the local people that try it. But we have obviously provincial distribution with this one, and it's been around. So. Really happy of this product. It's I think it's winning to be discovered again.
Perfect.
So enjoy it.
Awesome. What's the alcohol on this?
It's 5%.
Nice.
So it's a Pilsner. Do we do cheers with this?
Yeah. It's called toast.
A toast. Sorry. I should have the same one, but
it's a malty.
So we it's a Pilsner type, so it takes 6 weeks to make, obviously. Yeah. And really crisp. So quite happy of the result of what our head brewer did with this one.
Crisp, clean, nice like patio beer, or if you're watching sport, this is something you could definitely have quite a few of. Ooh. It's a very nice beer. I enjoy that.
Not wasting any time.
Why take my time? So what's the beer story? What's your beer story? Like what brought you to the beer? What created the brewery? Everything like that.
So I'll start with me. I've been in the beer business for actually 24 years now. I worked for the big breweries out of Montreal. I was a Coors Light marketing guy. Then I worked in BC and I worked in Alberta for Heineken. Then I had a crazy idea launching my own brand. So quit everything, moved back to Montreal. I started a brand called actually MTL, a premium lager. It was made to sell Montreal, to sell outside of Quebec. So we sold them in BC and Alberta, but hey, had the issues that any entrepreneur do. Like we think we're above this, but had some issues. But at the same time, I bought a small brewery in Griffintown called Beer Briar, so we call it Brisset. We launched Broken 7. Then we kind of coast for a few years, but then I was lucky enough to meet the last owner of Alchimiste, so where we launched the Vilain Brasseur plan or ideas. Then we did it for a couple years, and then classic, owner that wanted to retire. I raised my hand. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna be taking that brewery. And 2 years ago, I acquired Alchimiste, which is the perfect playground for me to do all the ideas that we have. And it's a 20,000 square feet brewery, so it's the equipment that is here is really well done. So it was, I think, what we needed is more rebrand, redo the commercial strategy, work again with better distributors, and then rebrand. We'll talk about it. And so so Alchimiste has been around for 20 years now. I'm the 3rd generation of owner. It started in 2001 in downtown Joliette as a little brew pub. It's funny how a lot of people in the industry, they say, I started to drink craft beer with Alchimiste, the Buck de Joliette in 2005. So Alchimiste, was really craft. The first generation became really more mainstream on the second one, and for me, the third one, we're trying to go back a little bit or kind of take a page, the best page of both plans, and put it in 2021 style. So we kind of get really a lot closer to a consumer. We're right in our new tap room because there was nothing for 6 years to serve beer actually directly to consumer. So a lot of things to change, but it was a really well done base. And Alchimiste is well known provincially. I keep saying I think it was too big for the small one and too small for the big ones. Kind of no man's land, but it's interesting enough now. We have our head brewer is fantastic. He couldn't be here this morning, but he's been doing an amazing job with all the recipes. We kind of revisit everything. Look at our way that all our processes So, and with a great marketing team, I think now we're putting it together to be successful for the future, for the next years, I guess.
Yeah, because to be honest, I don't recall Alchemist at all, except for maybe the last 4 or 5 years being on shelves. So
yeah, but we like in 2014, I think Alchimiste was selling like a lot of cases. It was in Costco and everything. But then you had distribution issues, and once again, it didn't to all the respect of the previous owner, he didn't have it in him to hey let's follow it. There's new beers. Like he was not into that, and he didn't feel like it. So that's why you didn't see Alchimiste. And Alchimiste was in the Metro and the IGAs, but hey, any specialty stores wouldn't carry Alchimiste, rightfully so, because it was beers that was really filtered, really really thin, and there was not a lot of flavors into it, or really a lot of anything special. So which we're trying to do now, and with what you can see even on the camera.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, like for myself, it's going to those specialty beer stores and finding new brands, and it's like, oh, Alchimiste, I hadn't heard these guys before, and then the Lanaudiere launched, which we'll talk about later. So it's like, oh, so now I'm starting to discover your beers more. And then you mentioning you had Vilaine, you have the Brasserie Lanaudiere. So it's your brewery, but you're also contract brewing at the same time, which is pretty cool. You are in a huge location in the industrial sector of Joliette, so you have the place. You obviously have the passion to keep your brewer and yourself recreating yourself, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, we did that. That's why I think too. The authentic line, we call it, with the big A. It's really a classic. It's one style, one product per style. It's really simple. One IPA, one blonde, one pale ale, one Rousse. But then how we wanted to connect to the region is like, because Lanaudiere has a lot of great producers of products. So we call the line Brasser Lanaudiere. So we're like right at the beginning when I acquired 2 years ago, we started to make beers with honey and camerises and donuts, and so we started to do all these stuff, and we thought, and we'll talk about the line Louie that we created, but we thought that would give us a bit back of the credibility. But the Brasser Lanaudiere, with when you brew, once again a stout with bang d'antan, it kind of hurt, it hits the imaginary, and then I think it was really well done. So that really helped us kind of connect to the region, and plus show that we're able to brew great beer and different style of beers.
As you mentioned too, like being with the old partner and him, you felt not really wanting to expand the brand, and then obviously I can hear the passion in your voice of like, let's get out there, let's do stuff. And you're not the only one. We've spoken with other breweries where it's like, yeah, my former partner, and it's like, what? I don't understand just trying to keep yourself like small in any way. Quebec is a huge province. We have neighbors to the Maritimes. We have neighbors to the West as well in Ontario. So why not promote the beers on like those kind of border beer lines where it's like, oh, somebody from New Brunswick comes in, hey, I haven't seen these guys before, let's try them. Oh, let's go deeper into Quebec, let's try. And you're obviously in a little more East End, you're not Quebec City or anything like that, but
right in the middle of the province.
You're what, 3 hours maybe to the New Brunswick borderline. So for myself, I travel 3 hours for beer like that.
For sure,
it's not a problem. So that getting your beers out there more, and come see us, please.
But yeah, to your point, I think the old partner, like, it's just the market that he's trying to cater to. Like, he was really trying to get to the Coors Light drinkers to do the step, right? They're really close to that line.
Yeah.
Like, you're talking about borderlines, but I was talking about consumer line, right? And I think we're trying to get more in the, not the beer geeks, but the more sophisticated beer drinker. That's what we're trying to do. So to your point, I'd love to, obviously in the midterm, I'd love to have, people from New Brunswick, from Ontario to come here. But first, we need to rebuild our credibility in the Quebec market. So that's what we've been doing over the last year and a half. And we know it's not going to turn overnight. It takes time, obviously. And because we had the choice, like we could have, kind of cancel the Alchimiste brand and start fresh. But no, because here, Alchimiste has good notoriety. There's 20 years of brewing knowledge as well, right? So it's not just, okay, Richie, you have an advantage to start a brewery from scratch, But then here we have a brewery that's 20 years of history that we can take some from it and then, build from there. So that's the plan, is really to tell Quebec consumer, hey, Alchimiste is doing good beer, right? And different beer, something that's going to surprise you versus Alchimiste is just blonde, Rousse, and white beer, right? So
like that's Boreal. They finally started like recreating their line, but that's who they were. They were Boreal Blonde, Boreal Rousse, and when they realized, obviously, like, we need to get everybody. So let's get the craft beer geeks as well. Let's create a new IPA. Let's create a new this. Let's create a new that. So you guys are the same way. It's like, yes, let's stick with the core brand, but let's expand on that too,
Exactly.
which is very important.
Well, I like to say, like, the president of Boreal is a friend of mine. So I like to say that we just need to take one page of their book and then but to use it to our recipe, because once again, for us, Lanaudiere, we're the first brewery that was built, the first craft brewery in Lanaudiere 20 years ago. So, we have our roots here, and I see we want to be close to our region and to the producer, and even to, you mentioned, and we'll talk about it, to the other breweries, because Lanaudiere has a lot of new breweries.
Yes.
That's why we need to tell people, hey, Lanaudiere, by the way, hey, we're here, right? It's like, there's, hey, Gaspésie's fine, Eastern Township is fine, but hey, there's 15 breweries here that, they're worth the visit.
Yeah, no, it's that's what I'm starting to like about Quebec, especially, is that people like yourself are stepping up, and it's like, here's our region, come try our beers. There's Quebec City, go try their beers. And so each region, outside of Montreal, obviously we're from where we're from, it's just like, just go, there's a brewery somewhere, you can find it. So.
No, but it's interesting, like, even at, Salut Bonjour, like 2 weekends in a row, they talked about it. They're talking, hey, there's route, in different regions. So it's like, people are excited, and it's, to your point, it's great that the regions are branding themselves and communicating themselves, because consumer, I keep saying, like, a lot of consumer, we in the industry, sometimes we assume that people know, right? So, oh, no, they know our brewery. No, right? Give them the right tool, and then, to educate them on where the breweries are and what they are all about, right?
I mean, obviously, I like to talk about this now. You guys, you'd mentioned you were around 20 years, but obviously we're just kind of in Joliette and not really out there. What were kind of some like difficulties yourself taking over as the general manager owner, and as well other difficulties of getting the brand out there in the rest of Quebec? Yeah,
well, that's why I say Alchimiste was, in terms of the distribution, I think, what we forget, but distribution is a key part of, obviously, the value chain of brewery, because you need to get your products to the shelf so they can drink it. So Alchimiste used to, have 10 trucks, 10 reps and all this. They kind of went with a distributor that is no longer existing right now. So retailers, while all these other breweries were growing or starting and knocking on their doors, so the retailers were like, well, Alchimiste, who do we talk to, right? They didn't know, so they got rid of us, right? So we had to rebuild those relationships. So that was a big hurdle. So we overinvested in, retail presence, work with our distributor, we work with Transbrew now. So we, work closely with them to make sure that, hey, the message is right, we explain the products, et cetera, et cetera. So that was one big hurdle. And once again, the hurdle is on the brand side, and on the product side, is the perception that, once again, like, Alchimiste is not really craft, right? So which, hey, we're like, we'll drink the Rousse and we'll drink the IPA, our IPA. So which, it's funny how people now, they drink here and they're like, okay, that's not what I expected, right? That's not what I thought it would taste like. So, but once again, it's going to be day in and day out. We're going to keep, obviously sampling people, and our authentic the line is really accessible price as well. It's between 2 for $6 or $3.29. So it's really an accessible price for craft beer drinkers. Like we say, we talk to the craft beer drinker during the week that they can, hey, you want something, it's consistent, it's quality, it's nothing crazy, but you'll get, a really good bang for your buck. So that's what some of the obstacles that we've, and then, we wanted to, once again, when I started negotiating to acquire this, my first call was to the city to know if I can build a tap room, because that was, I always owned a brewery in Griffintown. There was no tap room. So that was something that was missing that I wanted to have to the consumer. I'm part owner of Helm as well in the Milan. So, that's something that really it's a different feel when you have a brewery that can talk to consumer. So we built this nice tap room, but it was ready. It's been ready since January. So for 6 months we were here. At the end of the day, having a beer at the bar, like, oh, we have a really nice bar. Nobody can have it. So we've been open for a month and a half, which, once again, that was not a hurdle, but it's like a frustration that we're like, okay, we're ready. So, but I think, once again, we're really optimistic for what's ahead. And I think we turned the ship. It was a big ship to turn around. And and I think we're poised for good stuff in the future. Like, one last point I want to say is, even the staff, like, once again, like, brewers, I'm not a brewer, but the brewers that were here, they were brewing the same beer day in and day out. And in 2021, you don't get a lot of brewers. They don't stay to your brewery really long if you don't give them projects and stuff. So now we have 4 brewers, which they're really creative, and we give them a lot of leeway to, yes, we have our ideas, but at the same time, they have their ideas on, hey, we should, hey, what about we brew this, brew that, and then, So it's we're really happy the dynamic and the team that we have, like to complement our strengths, right?
All right, what's beer number 2 I'm going to be trying here?
So that's the Rousse. So the one fun fact is when we started, when I acquired here, I did a panel with our staff upstairs, and I was like, hey, let's try the beer. And I'm like, hey, the white beer, nah, no, don't like it. Rousse, don't like it. And then we kind of tweaked the recipe. But the Rousse, we started from scratch, and we wanted really something really balanced, like a bit of caramel taste, but nothing too thick, right? Because sometimes the Rousse, I think there's a big spectrum of where we can be in a Rousse, right? So quite accessible, but a good bite to it. So really malty, and then the little caramel feel to it. So enjoy.
As we do. Toast.
I learned fast.
Caramels at like a great level. Yeah, this is a tasty Rousse. This is another beer where, like, if I were playing softball, I'd probably go blonde and Rousse for like my day, because it happened to me. It was like, oh yeah, I would drink craft beer, and it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, I got to drink a Coors because I'm out of beer, and I'm like, oh my god, I can taste the preservatives.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah, that was really accessible once again, and you can drink a few of those without being like it being too what's the word I'm looking in your mouth, like
like any burning sensations or anything like that. No, they're both like nice and clean, well balanced beers, so it's very impressive. The city of Joliette was obviously very cool with you opening the tap room. I'm sure pandemic is like, we'll do the renovations while people can't be here, so at least we could do that. And then all of a sudden it's like we still can't open. Come on in. More have opened during the pandemic across Canada than have closed, which is awesome to hear. It shows that people want new and local beers.
Oh, for sure.
And we're all about supporting local.
But I think, and it's to your point, I think it's great that people, that breweries kind of survive through this. But now we're 275 breweries in Quebec approximately. I think I keep saying in 5 years it'll be 400 or so, right? Because I think that's what people keep forgetting, how fast the industry evolves. Like we keep forgetting, like 2 years ago there was no big fridge in IGAs and Metro, right? There's nothing like that, right? So even and now like the breweries, every small village are getting one, which is great, because used to be the bar where our parents used to go and drink 50 or more or Molson, but now they drink craft beer, which is great because it shows creativity. It's it's a local flavor, so I think it's great. I'm just excited about what's coming up for the industry in the next 10, 15 years.
So Alchimiste, you said, has been a brand for 20 years. Do you recall why it's called Alchimiste? Were you given that story, or?
Well, it goes back, I think, to the origin, like the definition of Alchimiste, which is someone that mix things and then creates gold, right? So that's why for us, it's interesting because we all know the Alchemist in Vermont.
Yes.
And it's been Alchemist in Vermont was in 2007. So Alchimiste in Quebec existed prior to this, right? Like that's why for me I like the name, because it's interesting how for me we're gonna not spin it to our advantage today, because you said it, we're a multi-brand brewery now. Yeah. We have, obviously we're contract brewing, we're doing different stuff. So I think Alchimiste, the name takes all the sense at that time, right? So even as in 2010, 21.
So Alchimiste, obviously, I'm sure you get alchemy all the time. People are like, hey, why aren't you in Vermont? You're like, no, we're in Joliette. Now, Vermont's an hour maybe south?
Yeah,
so
an hour and a half.
Not too bad.
Nope.
I mean, that'd be funny. You do alchemy and then Alchimiste, or you do back and forth. Like Vermonters, when the Vermonters can come up here again, when we could go back to Vermont, that would.
I think the previous owner tried to reach out.
Yeah.
But that's what he told me, because I was like, have you ever worked with them or not?
Yeah.
And it's like, we tried to reach out or we talked, but nothing ever happened. So for me, we've been with the pandemic, but at the same time, I was like, hey, let's clean our house. And then after that, we can say, hey, look what we're doing, and let's have a discussion. Hey, eventually, who knows what.
When it comes to the labeling, now, the A is very predominant on one side of the can, and then it's very, like, for your base brand, where it's pale ale de Rousse and stuff. And then it's, simple explanation on the front. What made you decide to go with that label?
Great question. Like, we debated, actually, because we could have gone in every different direction, because the first branding was real more, like I call medieval, like kind of thing, like the early 2000s kind of branding.
Almost like Domaine d'Atrum.
Really like swords and stuff like that, right? So, and the second one was kind of mainstream, or way more mainstreamish, like macro breweries. And then we want to have something really for the consumer, like really easy to notice on the shelves. Because once again, I mentioned just a bit before, the landscape evolved so fast. And now there's like 400 craft beers in an IGA or Metro or Maxi now. So for us, because it was, once again, we call it the gamme authentique, which is, one beer per style. We want something easy to understand the consumer. And that's why we're like, hey, let's put the A forward. And in French, we call it le A rassurant, like reassuring. Like, so feel good about it. Once again, it's 20 years of brewing knowledge. It's well done beer. It's accessible for price. So, hey, I know what I'm getting with this, and I can easily find it because when your eyes go to on the shelves, you see, all these different colors, these different graphics, which are great when you have in your hands. But for a consumer, it's tough to understand, right? Or even to make a choice, right? So that's what we did for that. And then we're with the Lanaudiere brand, which is obviously an extension of Alchimiste, kind of did the same thing. We're like, hey, let's put the ingredients on the back, and then the explanation on the producer, even on the front. It's not an explanation on the beer. It's that we always want to put the producer forward. So.
I mean, even your donut stout, it's like there's the donut on the side with a bite taken out of. So I love that kind of stuff. But my personal beer choices sometimes are like, this week I'm buying lagers. This week I'm gonna buy super cool can designs. So it's always changing. And now with IGAs, I mean, the IGA closest to me is they go by brands too. So it's like, here's obviously Trou du Diable now being owned by one of the big boys. It's like, well, they're predominant, but then you guys are in the big middle fridge that didn't exist 4 years ago. And now there's big, huge middle fridge that's all craft beer. And I'm sure probably friends years at Collectif Ensemble Brasseur, they have a deal on the side. It's like, I could grab a Baldwin and the other one here, and it's I get them on sale. So.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what we do now because we kind of touched a bit on it. We have Alchimiste, with Brasserie Lanaudiere, and we make villains obviously here. So, and then we have a division called Brasserie sur Invitation, which is our new projects, and we do contract brewing as well because we have capacity here. So now we have space. We all, most of the retailers, we pull our brands together, which, creates an impact. And to your point, you said it, like you understand, okay, this is brewed all at the same place. So it's easier for the consumer to understand. Like compared to specialty, you said it, like most of the stores are set up by brands or by companies, which compared to, let's say, Peluso, they're set up by type of beer. Yeah. Which it's interesting. The dynamic is like, hey, should we all go like that? Because you said it, like, hey, I want to buy lagers this weekend, so I'm gonna go in the lager section, but it's tougher to manage, obviously.
Yeah, that's why I usually go to my beer stores. I'm in Verdun, so multi hops I have, which was great. Like when that place opened, I'm like, I'm gonna spend so much money now. So. What's beer number 3 I'm going to be drinking here?
This is the sour, the camerises sour. So this is one of the last can on the line here. So we made a partnership with a camerises company. It's called Camerises et Compagnie, actually, in L'Assomption, and then these guys, Pascal, the producer, is really a great guy, and then they did other beers as well with Très Carré even and McFurdy, so 2 other breweries in Lanaudiere, so which kind of working all together. So this is the first kettle sour that we did here. Really a bit tart, but I think not too much. So once again, really accessible. I think you find it. It's interesting how camerises is a fruit that even yesterday there were some people here and they're like, "What's a camerise?" Sorry to ask, right? It's like it's a fruit that's getting known, and it's really I think a right balance with the sour. It's all right.
Let's toast.
Yes.
Toast. Yeah, not too sour, not too tart. It's just like that right level. Like this is another. This would be a summer beer for me. This is something I would exclusively drink during the summer because it's like that right level of fruitiness.
Yeah. So we like here. It's interesting how yesterday I was looking at our lineup for the summer, and then see we open the summer night. There's like 5 sours on the menu. We did one like Alchimiste never done any before, and now we're doing like we launched a sour of framboise on the authentic line. So we're having fun doing those, and I think they're to your point. I think it's interesting how we're debating it. Really a summer beer, but I think it's going to translate a bit more during the fall and the winter. A lot of drinkers that people that IPAs. I can't drink that. Oh, I don't like IPA. I'm like, well, try this. Or I don't like beer. I'm like, I give them this, and then they really like it. So.
One question I like to ask is like, let's say you have, a former Bud Most Coors drinker, so BMC drinker come in. What's kind of like the gateway beer you introduce them to? Obviously the blonde would be predominant, but what else would you kind of try and shift them to?
Well, it's interesting. I think it depends on what they drink because my new saying is IPA is the new blonde, right? So it's interesting how you give him a Projet Tropical from Villain, which is really fruity, like agrumes, say like so. But obviously, because like for me to give them a blonde right off the bat, it's too easy, right? To go back, you need to give them something that it will make a change, right? And after they'll go back to the pills or the lagers, right? So I think the sour, especially not to be talk about sex, but women they love sour. They obviously they love the fruit. So sours is really a style that you want to give them. But actually, I'd like to give them the new IPA, the New England, because it's like okay, I'm switching to craft beer. Now I'm drinking IPAs because a lot of consumer that's what in their mind is like. It's like okay, for me, craft beer is like IPAs.
Yeah. So another question I always ask is collaborations. Now, obviously, you've worked with when it came to camerises, a local farm. What are some other like collabs you've done in the past, whether it be breweries, stores, or anything like that?
Well, we've in Brasserie Invitation, we've done obviously we're brewing their beer, so it's not like we don't do the collab in terms of the we didn't commercialize that way, but we work with Matera. On their main beer, so the Real, the Match Parfait, and then the Tam Tam. So, working with these guys, it's been really great. And they put their, I don't know if it's in English, their food, their big, the big barrel. Yeah. So because one of our project is, and then we work with Barbe Rouge, which is a guy from Trois Pistoles. So we did 5 beers with him. And now one of our project is we're having a chai on the, I keep pointing over there because we have another building.
Yeah.
So it's, we're starting that. So we're working with these companies to do that. So it's like, do we have, a dream collab? It'd be more a question for my brewer, for our head brewer, but hey, obviously the obvious one is Alchemist, but then for me, I'd love to do collabs because I used to live out west, so I'd do collabs with some of the guys that own breweries over there and then work with them and then kind of share, knowledge and practices, I think that's what that's the next step in terms of the beer, so really excited about it.
Yeah, I know the guys at Third Moon did like a 5 brewery collab, and it was pretty much on Zoom, and they like everybody sent them the ingredients, and it's like, okay, you're gonna add this much, you're gonna add this much. So with the technology we have now, the stuff you guys can create is just like, I'm super looking forward to everything that's coming out. And when we're allowed to travel to the U.S. again, I'm going to Vermont for a month when I can.
But just to add to that, I think the Lanaudiere thing, which is our 15 breweries, I think we haven't that's what we're talking right. There's collabs coming that are brewing obviously, and so that's coming. So that's for us. That's really what we're excited because once again I mentioned again, but we're excited about promoting our region and to work together and create even different stuff because the breweries here are quite different. Like even just here in Joliette, we have Albion, which is all English or mostly English beers, and then Malmstrom, which is with Michael, which is a brewer here. Now he's doing lagers and barrel aged stuff, which it's exciting for.
Well, speaking of the Lanaudiere, who came up with that concept? Obviously, I'm sure you guys all jumped together, and it's like we need a route. Like Vermont has a route, Quebec, we need our own. So who came up with that concept?
Actually, the previous owner wanted to do a festival, 3-4 years ago, and then kind of like the concept fell through. And then there's an organism here that's worked for the region, working to promote the products, but. Nothing was kind of like they were just talking, but ideas. But we need to have a strategic plan. So I'm to blame. I kind of took did a strategic plan because I come from the corporate background. I was like, hey, it's not complicated, but it's not complicated, but at the same time to put 15 breweries together. Yeah. So it's like, hey, let's do one step at a time. So we're like, let's just give us a brand identity and do have a route on a map, and then we can start to do collabs, festival, retail activation, all that. So we finally kind of did it, and then we kind of get all together, just ourselves, and it's exciting, interesting to see how and I wanted to see, okay, is it just me that wants to do it, right? It's like okay, well, because everybody has to do it on their own time, right? It's like, but you could see the dynamic, and people are really excited to work together, which is great because of course, I think beer people get along for the most part. We all have our common goals, but it's exciting, and as I said, there's new brewers and. They were quite, I think, happy or surprised to see how we want to help them. And we, during the pandemic, actually, we were not able to visit each other. But I was doing a radio show, well, not show, but a 5-minute segment in a year. And so I invited every brewery every week. And then after that, we were bringing them here. So and then we, so it kind of created a dynamic, and we're like, hey, need help, on whatever. We have, bigger equipment. We have more people. I have a, mechanic guy here full time, so we can help. So that's that really created the foundation of, I think a lot of good things that can happen.
Oh, I do find a lot of you guys are like more than willing to work each other. Let's say the fermenter, they're like, oh, we ran out of like crystal malts. Do you have any extra or something? You guys are always willing to spread the love. I'm sure there's some guys who are like, oh no, me, but it's rare that we've seen that. Everybody we've ever spoken to, from influencer to beer store to brewery, all you guys are like awesome. You want to spread the love. You want to keep each other going. So I love hearing that kind of stuff there. It's let's keep each other successful.
Yeah.
So.
Well, for sure. And then you said, like, I think the microbrewery is still 75% at least of the market. So, once again, we sometimes, people come to our tap room and call, oh, you have a great beers, but there's still a lot of people out there that don't know craft beer. So let's get together and build the pie. Well, like today, let's not try to fight each other. No, we all have all advantage to work together to spread the good news, right? So
I do know in Ontario, macro sales went down about 8 to 10% last year. I don't know what Quebec's like. I don't have like access to those numbers. Like Ontario is very open about their beer sales, so it's nice to see like at least there's one province we know of that's starting to shift to like people want flavor. People want when there's new restaurants open. Oh, I want to try this new smokehouse. I want to try this new Caribbean restaurant or Creole or whatever. So I do find generally as Canadians, we're willing to experiment when it comes to stuff like this. So it's very cool to let us, Montreal is like a big melting pot. I can go get Portuguese chicken one day and then the next day I could go get dumplings from another place. So I love seeing this kind of stuff and it's keeping each other busy, keeping each other going. Let's keep this business alive. Obviously as craft beer drinkers, we want you guys to support each other. We don't want one place to be like, oh, if you don't only spend my money here, then you can go. No.
It's not worth it.
Spread the love.
It's short-term gain that it's not worth it. But I think the pandemic too accelerated that here in Quebec because I think we're a bit behind from Ontario in the West in terms of consuming, and we can tell obviously you can tell that's my thing is like the industry and how it works. The big brewers, because of the retail environment, they're trying to stop and they were protecting their space at retail. But at one point, the big retailer is like, no, we have too much demand from the consumer, and the pandemic happened. It's like people are like, okay, I'm not spending on anything else. I'm gonna there's craft breweries. Let me try to get into that. It's funny how many times I've heard that. I started to drink craft beers with the pandemic, which is great. So that's why the data, we don't have it. But for me now, we're at least, I think craft beer is about 25%. Because it's tough Quebec because it's a private retail environment. Yeah. You don't get numbers like the LCBO and the beer store, right?
Exactly. So awesome. What's this last beer I'm going to be trying
here? We launched a brand called Louie. So some people might saw it. We had 4 cans in the market when we started. But then we kind of put a hold on it, and because we did Louie brand for the tap room. We created a brand under the Alchimist to have fun, right? For our breweries to have fun. So we did a milkshake IPA, raspberry milkshake IPA under the Louie brand, and that was made for a tap room. So it's not in can; it's just for here. So we made it for here, and then so that's why eventually we want to do different stuff like a beer with Joe Louie, and call it Joe Louie, right? Like we have a candy store across the street that we want to do stuff with, like a candy shop, actually not a store. So we want to do fun stuff for the tap room. We have a 200-liter system, which is actually the first system of Alchimiste. So we kind of rebuild it in a movable system, and then now we're going to do, we call it banc d'essai. So we're going to create some stuff, and then the Louie brand will come into play in that. And eventually we'll do different brands that, in cans maybe, if they go well here.
For sure. Awesome. A toast. Ooh, that is tasty. Yeah, the lactose really balances it out. It's very nice.
Yeah, it's it kind of aged in the fermenter because it was ready before because we thought we'd open before. So, but it kept all this.
The pandemic's been something else for everybody. So so somebody comes. Obviously, you have the Lanaudiere, but more specifically, somebody comes here, has your beers. What are some close friends you recommend for them to try next? Yeah,
so that's why Lanaudiere is 15 breweries, and it's obviously you're not going to make the 15 ones. To your point. So we have 3 breweries that are close to here. So we have Albion, which is a brew pub downtown. So a lot of Steven is making a lot of. It's 3 brothers, and they do a lot of English beers, old style. And they're actually building a brewery in Sainte Mélanie right now, bigger brewery, so they're expanding. But it's a really nice brew pub in an old house, and their beers are fantastic. And we have Michael Fizet, which is at Malmstrom.
Okay.
So, he's been a veteran in the industry. He's one of the first breweries here at Alchimiste.
Yeah.
Decided to start his own brewery in 2014, 2015. Do a lot of lagers and a lot of barrel age, his wild sour lagers are amazing.
Yeah.
So when there's a release, there's always a lot of our staff that go there. And then there's a new brewery called Apothicaire from David. It's funny how it's an old brewer from Albion.
Yeah.
So it's like, like we have little kids that are,
Yeah.
and it's just in Saint Jacques here. So it's like 15 minutes west, and they do mostly Belgian beers. So it's, we have a little, we're part of Lanaudiere, but we have obviously a little closer friends here that, people come here and we say, hey, if you want to try those beers, and so it's just the beginning. But I think we want to create that. Say, hey, go leave from Saint Bruno or from Verdun. It's like, hey, I'm going to go to Joliette. I can visit 4 breweries really close.
Yep.
And we have a few good restaurants that we can recommend. So yeah.
When it's for the Alchimiste brand itself, what's next for you guys?
Yeah, so as I mentioned a bit before, our next step is we just had our cider permit. Mm-hmm. So now we just made some cider last week. So now it's in the barrel right now. So it's going to be ready in the spring. We had our alcohol permit too. Yep. We're going to make we made seltzer, and we're gonna make some alcohol for 2022 to SEQ. But the main part is because we're lucky enough to have 2 buildings, so 2 separate buildings. So we're gonna have a wild side. So we're gonna brew beers on this side, and we're gonna push it on the other side, and then get it fermented in barrique and all that. So we're gonna do saison, and we have like a saison cassis now in the making. So we're building our share right now. So it's funny for people to hear that Alchimiste doing this. It's like, whoa, okay. But so that's why we did a lot of project in the first 2 years, but now that's the project for 2022, and we're really excited to launch that line and kind of surprise consumer. And I mentioned it a bit before, but for us, that's how our brewer there. You ask them, all 4 of them, do you like to work here? You can tell, like they come here with a big smile because we give them the freedom to do all this, right? Yeah. So. And even the next beer that we we did 2 beers with honey with the producer from here, and now we have one. It's like a barley wine with burnt honey in bourbon barrel.
Oh,
and I tried it yesterday, and then my brewer's like, "It's ready." I'm like, "Okay." He's like,
"Wow!"
But I tasted. I'm like, "That tastes winter."
Yeah.
So we're gonna launch in November.
Yeah, that's what it happened with Benelux, because in Verdun we were doing kind of a winter festival or. Like between winter and spring, and it's like Benelux came out with a barley wine, and I'm like, oh, and they're like, oh, and we can heat it if you want. I'm like, I'll try that.
Wow. So that's our, and then we're working with the city because we have the tap room, and now outside we haven't really done anything, but in the spring we're working with the city to have a little, like a consumption area, not just because we're not in a city, so we don't have a wooden patio. We want to have something with wooden structure, lights, and picnic table. So we're working to do a little, a bit like Barabas, I don't know if you've been there. So we're looking to do something and become kind of a touristic hub because we're right in the middle of Lanaudiere.
Okay, so an idea that we saw out in New Hampshire, they actually built kind of plastic igloos that were heated that people could go in and get served. So
no way.
Just an idea.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll put it in the pocket.
Awesome. This has been a fantastic day. I really appreciate taking time in your schedule to speak with us about the brewery and your passion, and obviously you're very happy with where you are, and you are definitely expanding, which is great to hear. I have another question for you today, so let the audience know where they can find you.
So you can find us at 681 Marion in Joliette. So it's pretty easy to find today with social media. Our tap room is open from Wednesday to Sunday. Check online for our opening hours. Obviously, they're evolving. And we can look at alchimiste.ca, which is our website, and you can find all our beers, all of the information. Obviously, there's a Vilain Brasseur website. You can check that too. And so there's a store locator. So now we're about over 900 stores in Quebec, so you can find our beers pretty much anywhere.
Awesome. As all that'll be in the show notes, as for us, it's allbeerinside.com is the website, at allbeerinside on all social media. And as I say in the end of all episodes, drink craft, not crap.